I have to say, I'm genuinely surprised at the direction they decided to take the Teddy Ruxpin film. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
And I'm Michelle.
And this is our post-Geekout reaction for... By the way, I'm fully aware none of you out there got that joke because none of you know what this movie is. No, that's not true. Like 20% of you probably know what this is. We're talking about Brigsby Bear. It's our post-Geekout reaction, and for anybody who has not seen one of these before, the post-Geekout reaction is not a review. In the review, I sit down and think of everything I want to say, and I type it all out, and there are no spoilers. This is just our open, honest discussion about the thing that we just watched, and that does include full spoilers. However, as I said, probably only like 20% of you know what this film is. The other 80% know this film as that weird, creepy-ass poster I've been seeing at the movie theater for the past 2 months. Have you seen the poster for this?
No, I haven't. That's because I've mostly been staying home while you were the one going.
Yeah, you had to be watching after the dog for a while, and then you were sick. So it's like, yeah, you haven't been going to the theater as much. But it's like, yeah, if you've been going to the theater, you've been seeing this poster that is just this man standing there about to shake hands with a giant animatronic bear as a big moon with a face and a goatee on, like standing up there like, I was like this is, it looks like a fever dream is what the poster looks like. It looks
like Five Nights at Freddy's, the live action movie.
Oh, that should have been the joke I made. Goddamn, take two. Yeah, so, but yeah, so, for that percent of you out there who don't know what this is, what we're going to do here today is I'm going to do like we did when we saw Colossal. For anybody who saw that review that we did for Colossal, I said it's a great film, but it's even better if you go in completely cold and have no idea what it is. So I'm just going to give you a very quick summary of okay, here's some pros, some cons, very vaguely, and then tell you okay, is it good, is it bad, blah blah. And then after that, I will get into the actual discussion for anybody who has actually seen this. So if you have not seen the film, basically what this film is, it stars this guy in his mid-20s, and he is a huge fan of this children's show that's been around since he was a kid called Brigsby Bear, and it's got this long backstory and all this mythology to it and 25 different seasons to it. And basically this is a film that I am very interested to hear what many other people think of this, because it's one of those films where everybody's going to kind of be able to bring their own thing to the table on this. Everybody, based on your own personal backstory, are gonna have a different interpretation of this. And one of the small complaints I have with this is that, it feels like this film is trying to say something, but it isn't that clear because it wanted to keep it that open to the audience, which is a positive. But there was a moment which is okay, I now know what you're going for with this. But really, there's only one scene at the very end that lets me go, that's what you were trying to say. Aside from that, it's kind of well, is this a positive or is it a negative? Because it is about this person's obsession with this show. And for the most part, I kind of viewed it as a positive. I viewed it as because I'm here on this channel, basically it's a celebration of all things geeky, because I think that having a passion for something in pop culture is something that can bring people together, and that is one of the messages of this. He is able to form friends through this, and he does have a passion for it, but it does also show negative sides of that, and so it is one where if you have no idea what this film is, I really would be intrigued to hear what everybody's thoughts are on it. In fact, in a weird way, I kind of want to know what my parents' thoughts are on this.
Have they seen it?
No, I don't think my parents even know what this is. In fact, I know my parents don't know what this is. But my parents ever do want to see it. Like I said, I would be really interested in hearing what anybody out there who has kids would think of this. Because you do see the parent side of having a child who is this obsessed with this thing. And it's okay, well, I see you're pointing at this too. And also, I will say, it doesn't sound like this is that original of a thing, but again, it's because I'm keeping a major part of this secret. And it's not a twist that comes in the third act. It's not oh my goodness, we zoom back to reveal it was this. No, this twist comes at the 5-minute mark. It's the plot of this film. But it's so crazy, and it adds so much onto this that if you do not know what it is, it really is worth just going in there cold, just go, oh, because they don't even come right out in the beginning and say what it is. They slowly kind of reveal what the big crazy twist of this film is. So yeah, I really do think that this did an ingenious job of kind of creating a film that everybody's going to be able to bring their own interpretation to. I know a lot of people said this film was hilarious. I didn't think it was really funny, but I was like, oh, you know what? It's a kind of, it's one of those films that I never laughed out loud at. I was like that kind of laughter to it, where you just, yes. Good.
Like you feel like this is not an intentional comedy?
It is an intentional comedy, but I don't think it's meant to be a laugh out loud comedy. I think it's meant to be a heartwarming comedy, because that's the other thing. It really is kind of heartwarming, because we see so many films out there that are cynical, and this film, when it has the biggest opportunity in the world to be cynical, because this guy, he's very socially awkward, and this is a film where he starts making friends. Yeah, like he will go to a party and you're like, man, he's just gonna it's just gonna be boys like beating him up because he's a grown ass man walking around in a Brigsby Bear t-shirt. And he meets a guy there. He's like, hey man, that's cool. So what's this thing that you like? Yeah, what's tell me about that. And cuts to him just talking about it to a group of people because it's the only thing he knows how to talk about. And then generally okay, all right, cool, yeah, all right, that's cool, man. Yeah, all right, tell me more about this thing. All right, nice. And yeah, it's very genuine. Everybody in there is all right, cool. There's a police officer in this film, and the police officer in the beginning, you're all right, well, he's I don't want to say phony, but he is kind of okay, well, he doesn't really understand this kid either, but then he actually genuinely tries to understand this kid, and I was like, man, this is just a film where everyone is just really nice, and it's so genuine that there came that point where I realized, oh, the third act has to come. The all hope is lost moment has to come because that's how stories work. And I realized that right before it happened, I went, I don't want that to happen. I want it to just be a nice film about people kind of coming together. It's just so sweet. This really is a sweet film. I don't think you're meant to laugh out loud, which is weird because it's from the Lonely Island guys. The I'm on a boat motherfucker. Yeah, those guys. And Andy Samberg does make a brief cameo appearance in here. Which, it's not like they stop and go, hey kids, it's Andy Samberg. It kind of fits how he's in here. So, yeah, it's one of those films where I would definitely recommend going out and seeing it. I really did enjoy it. There's a lot of people out there who are oh, this is easily one of the best films of the year. And I think they're being mostly impressed by how original it is. Because so many people say there's no more original ideas out there. No, there's tons of original ideas out there. They're just weird as hell. You gotta get crazy with this stuff, and this is a crazy concept for a film. But I think the other reason why so many people are saying oh, this is one of the best films of the year is because it's a genuinely sweet film, and we don't get a lot of those. And yeah, so if anybody out there is this is my favorite film of the year, it's I totally understand. I don't know if it's gonna crack my top 10, but it's yeah, this was a really darn good film. Okay, now for anybody who does know what this movie is about, or you have seen the film, now let's get into it. Have you actually heard anything about this movie?
I've heard the Cinema Snobs.
Okay, so you know so you actually know what it's about. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this film opens up and it's this kid. He is he's in his mid-20s. And he's watching this show, and his room is decked out in Brigsby Bear merchandise. He's got Brigsby Bear clothing, Brigsby Bear bed just covered in its stuff. His wall is just nothing but VHS tapes of Brigsby Bear. And as the film goes along, Mark Hamill plays his dad, and you meet Mark Hamill. And here's the thing, I love that Mark Hamill is the dad, because for years I've been saying that dude is a genuinely great actor. So many people, in mainstream Hollywood, they only know him as, yeah, he's Luke Skywalker, so what, who cares? It's just Luke Skywalker. It's but for people in the geeky community, we all know he's one of the most established voice actors out there.
Oh, yeah.
He voices 20 different characters at any given time. And he does an amazing job of it. And he plays his dad in here, and he's, very, I was mentioning how genuinely sweet this film is. He's a genuinely sweet guy in here. But as it goes along, you see them at dinner, and they're saying a very weird prayer about moving forward tomorrow, and they all stand up and shake hands with each other, and it's all right, that's kind of odd. And then he goes, hey kid, you want to go out by the lake? And I was all right, that's sweet. And then they just climb up some stairs, punch in some numbers into a bunker, and then open it up, and then climb out of the bunker, and what's going on? And then it was revealed they're inside a biodome thing. and they go over and they just sit at the edge of it and stare off at a little lake, and there's like a robot fox out there and robot bees. And it's like, okay, which I knew what the twist of this was already. I knew what this film was about, but if you don't know what it is, I really want to know, like, what are your thoughts when you got to that moment? But yeah, like, the kid knows he's not allowed to go outside. Like, his dad leaves every single day and gets in the car and goes, but his dad puts on a gas mask before he leaves. And he's just like, well, yeah, I can't go out there, else we're all gonna die. And all of a sudden the cops show up, and they, like, arrest his parents, and they arrest his parents, and they take him, and then they kind of explain to him, like, you were kidnapped when you were an infant. The people you think are your parents are not your actual parents. They're actually your kidnappers. And, like, he's just been living in this bunker his entire life. Like, he doesn't think the rest of the world exists outside here. He knows other people live here because he's been going on the Brigsby Bear forum and talking about Brigsby Bear to people, which is then revealed that was just his parents as well. His parents. It's so weird. Like, part of you does want to call them his parents because, like, they are just, like, even though they're his kidnappers, they're really nice to him. Like, they're really like, hey, I mean, as nice as you can be while still keeping your kid hidden underneath a bunker and teaching him that the outside world doesn't exist. It's so weird that that's a subgenre. Like, it's so weird that it's like you stop and you think it's like as I was watching this, I was like, this is one of the best one of these films I've ever seen. And then I realized I've seen other films of this. Like, we all remember the Brendan Fraser film, Blast from the Past. But then there was also recently Room, where it was all about this woman who got trapped in a room for like 10 years. And she got pregnant when she went in there. And then she just gave birth to a child. And to keep the child from going crazy, she just started. All that exists is this room. There's nothing outside these walls, nothing outside, and then eventually they're freed, and so it's this little kid having to learn about it. It's like, okay, that film was amazing too, but like, this film did such an amazing job of capturing this guy not knowing what the real world is like. Like, that's the best thing that I can say is that the protagonist of this film, he nailed this feeling of, I don't know what any of this is. Like, when his real parents meet him and they take him home, they have a dog, and he's like, what the fuck is that? Like, he kind of knows what dogs are because he was like, oh yeah, it's better than the blast wolves that I've seen. Because, like, he doesn't even know, like, real words for things. Like, he just knows the fake names that his fake parents gave him for things. And he thinks, like, okay, this robot wolf is like an actual wolf. Like, that's what they actually look like. It's like, yeah, he nails that feeling of, like, when he goes out to, like, talk to people, like, he doesn't know how to interact with people. He doesn't know what a party is. He doesn't know what any of this stuff is. And, like, his real dad at one point takes him to see a movie, and he's sitting there just looking at him like, oh my gosh. Like, it's meant to be, like, one of these, like, cheesy 90s like sports movies where it's like, okay, well, we can't get the team together, and oh no, this kid is fat and he eats everything all the time, and oh, there's someone who's really good. Hey kid, who are you? They take the mask off, they reveal they're a girl. Oh my gosh. Like, it's all these things like, yeah, we've seen 1,000 things like this. He's watching this movie, like, when they reveal that this person's a girl, he's just like, like, yeah, it's genuinely new to him. And like, afterwards he was just sitting there talking to people. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like, it's and then there's that part where the kid ate all this stuff and he fell, and oh, it was kind of like Brigsby Bear, but it was different because it was just one long adventure rather than many like, he was just discovering what a movie was, and it was like, man, you are nailing this, you nailed that idea. But as I said, Brigsby Bear is all he has had his entire life. That's the only show he's ever watched. It's the only show he thinks exists out there. Every single week it comes out, and he's been sitting there watching it, and it taught him, like, math, it taught him, like, morals, it taught him all these other things. And, like, one of the questions he has when he gets out is he just goes, yeah, okay, this is all weird, but where's the new episode of Brigsby Bear? And, like, they had to sit down and explain to him, Brigsby Bear isn't an actual thing. Your fake dad, your kidnapper, he every single day would go to a studio where he would then record all this stuff, like all the props, all the costumes, everything. He made them himself. There were actors working in this thing, and later on you meet one of the actors, and she just goes, "I'm so sorry for all that. He just told me it was for a Canadian Access television show. I didn't know this." Like, I felt sick to my stomach afterwards. And like, this guy, even though he's in his mid-20s, he acts towards Brigsby Bear the way that like a 5 to 10-year-old would act towards this stuff, because that's kind of like the mentality that has been kept in.
Right.
Because like, you know, there's this girl that he who was in the show, and he basically grew up with her, and like, he's just kind of like, you know, when you're a kid and you have like a crush on a character on a television show, it's like, we're gonna get married one day. He's kind of like that. And it's one of those moments when he actually meets her that's like, this could be really, really creepy. But the film is just so sweet and non-threatening with everything that it does kind of make you go, yeah, but we all understand. It's just give the kid a pass. Like, we all understand. It's like, in any other film, you could have turned that into a stalker moment where it's like, I thought I was making a TV show and now this kid who's been kept in a bunker is chasing me around and everything. It's like, no, they just treat it like, kid, listen, just, you gotta move on from this stuff. But the thing is, after he finds out what movies are, he then decides, wait, can anybody make a movie? And he decides, I gotta know how the story ends, which is like I said, this is kind of like a good film for anybody out there who really does have a geeky passion for something, because we've all been there in that moment where we love something and then it just ends without getting the actual ending to it, and we're like, how does it end? It's like, yeah, that's kind of what he's like. So he decides, I'm gonna make the Brigsby Bear movie, and he meets this kid at a party, and like I said, it's one of those things where it's like, man, his sister dragged him to this thing, and his sister in the beginning is a total jerk towards him, because she's like, God, look, this is just, but at the same time, she's like, God, this is just weird. I just don't understand this guy. It's just so strange. And it's like, man, be compassionate to this guy. Understand him. But then at the same time, you kind of understand her point of view too, because it's like, yeah, her parents, they're passionate about this because they're like, it's our baby. She was stolen from us when we was a baby. We kept thinking about this whole time. She's like 6 years younger than him, so she never even knew this guy existed, and all of a sudden there's this weird guy who doesn't understand what the outside is now living in their house with them. It's like, yeah, I can kind of understand why she'd be weirded out by this, but she decides to take him to a party because she's like, I just gotta get out of the house, my parents are making me drag you with me. So he goes to a party. He's like, man, this is not gonna go well at all. And the people at the party, they're really sweet and nice to him, and I was like, man, I thought it was just gonna be a bunch of jerks and boys, but the guy's like, nah, man, I understand. Listen, tell me about this Brigsby Bear thing. Go on, man, let's just talk about this. I like your shirt. Go on. It's like, they're just being friendly to him. There's no ulterior motives. They're just nice to him. I was like, God, it's been so long since I've seen a film where people were just nice. But there's one guy, he wants to be a filmmaker, and because all that this guy knows how to talk about is Brigsby Bear, he gives this guy who wants to be the filmmaker a bunch of tapes, and the guy watches them and goes, these are actually pretty good. I actually kind of like this. Like, I'm kind of invested in this. Like, they actually start talking about the plot, and it's like, dude, you want to make like the final episode of this? I'm totally down for it. And they just get together with like the other friends he meets at the party, and the rest of this film is them trying to make the Brigsby Bear movie, in which he just like tells what happens to Brigsby Bear. And I was like, this is like just really genuinely heart-touching. But then there comes a moment where his actual real parents step in, and they're like, okay, this is all you're doing. Listen, there's a giant world out there. There's so much out there to explore. Don't you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, that's kind of like the negative side of geek culture. It's like, man, you do have to kind of go out there and do other things. You do have to go out there and like actually experience life outside of this one thing that you love. But the police officer who like kind of like helped him like kind of like understand what was happening to him, this kid finds out that he wanted to be an actor at one point, and he's like, oh, why did you stop doing it? He's like, oh, I don't know, you get older, you lose interest in something. He's like, oh, that's so sad that you couldn't do the thing you loved. And the kid, I was like, oh. And I was like, man, you kind of feel bad for him. And the police officer is played by Greg Kinnear, and I always confuse Greg Kinnear and Bill Paxton. So honestly, like when I first saw, oh God, is it Pullman? No, Bill Pullman. Whichever one recently passed away. I always confuse those two. So when he first popped up in here, I went, oh my God, this is what must have been his last film. oh, that's so sad. And then like halfway through this, I went, oh, that's Greg Kinnear, goddammit. But yeah, so he actually wants to help this guy, and he does actually kind of like have a passion. He makes him remember, oh yeah, I have passion for acting. So he actually steals a lot of the confiscated props from the Brigsby Bear show and gives them to him to make this film. And it's like, dude, this isn't really helping him, but at the same time, it's kind of helping him because he kind of need, like, you can't just take everything away from this kid and then send him into the real world.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you kind of do need this. And I'm like, okay, this actually is really sweet. Oh, the guy's gonna get to make his own. Look at how happy he is for this. But then his parents go up to the cop and they're like, yeah, listen, we know that he's excited for this and we're glad that you're trying to help. But this, to us, is a symbol of the people that stole him from us as a child. This is the people who, like, basically brainwash him, and this is the tool they use to brainwash him. And I was like, oh God, they have a really good point. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would be really intrigued to see what my parents would think if they watched this, because it's like, yeah, I'm kind of seeing it from his point of view because I don't have kids. If I did have kids, I might watch this thing and it's like, no, fuck this. Like, these people stole their child, and now just he's using the tool they used to brainwash him.
Did they ever explain why they kidnapped him?
Kind of. There is a moment where he does go to jail. We've been going for a long time. Anyway, sorry, I have to keep in mind that after like 24 minutes, like this video just stops and then it restarts. And there's like 1 second of no audio when that happens. So I'm like, God damn, we've gone past that 24-minute mark. Fuck it, keep going. Yes, there is a moment after Mark Hamill is in prison and he goes and meets up with him. And Mark Hamill's like, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. And he goes, yeah, there's one thing that I need to know. And he goes, listen, I don't even really know why it happened. Just one day I came home from work and she had you there. And I knew it was wrong, but just seeing the two of you together, there's no way I could say no. So we just did what we had to do to make sure that we could keep you, and that the rest of the world couldn't find out. And I know it's not fair to you. It's like, that's the weird thing, is that it's like, man, you want to hate Mark Hamill and his fake mom because you just look at this and you're like, yeah, you stole this baby and then raised him to be brainwashed. But everyone in this world is so genuine and so nice. Like I said, there's a moment in which they, like, Mark Hamill, back when he thinks he's still his dad, they're just sitting and talking, and he's like, listen, son, you see those bees out there? And you see, like, 2 little bees on, like, a stick just rotating around at all times. Like, you see those bees out there? They're just living through life, just trying to get by, just trying to survive, just like you and me. However, they don't have imagination. That's the thing that makes us different. It's what makes us special. And you never let go of that, and you always hold on to that. Like, that's a damn good father-son speech to give. You're his fucking kidnapper. It's like, yeah, he does genuinely care about this guy. Like, I hate to keep saying genuine, but yeah, that is what it is. This guy genuinely cares about his kidnapped child.
I kind of feel like this is like a juxtaposition, like it's the parents that you wanted when you were growing up versus the parents you actually have that kind of forces you to, like, grow up in the real world.
That's actually a really good way of putting this. Like I said, you didn't even see this film, but everybody, like, this is one of those films where everybody who watches this is going to get some kind of a different meaning out of this. And like, yeah, that is, I can totally see that. Because yeah, they treat him kind of like, yeah, man, they treat him like a child throughout his entire life. But they are like, here's all your Brigsby stuff, yay, all that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, then he meets these people, and it's like, it's not like his parents are, his real world parents are like stern or anything with him. They're very understanding about his situation. They very much want him to, like, be happy. But at the same time, they're like, you gotta do stuff aside from Brigsby. This can't be your one obsession. And also, they do raise a good point. There comes that moment in which you kind of realize this is like a very advanced form of Stockholm Syndrome. Like, his obsession with this, it is kind of like him sort of holding on to, oh, who are these people? That was my real parents back there. Like, that's kind of what this becomes at one point. And like I said, one of my complaints is that they don't really cover certain parts of this enough. Like, there's a moment in which he lays out the plot of his Brigsby Bear film, and he talks about how Brigsby's parents get stolen from him and taken away, and at the end of this, I don't know, maybe he frees his parents from space jail, because when you think about what they did, it wasn't really that bad. And I was like, okay, he's gonna have to explore this idea. And that was really all they mentioned of it. Like, it never really comes back later, like this whole idea of like, does Brigsby get his parents back from space jail? And it's like, yeah, that never really comes back up. And I was like, yeah, like there does come a point in which I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're doing this, because there is a moment where they see, they actually, towards the end of this, they actually send this guy to an insane asylum because he actually causes an explosion, because he's looking up ways to make effects for this film, and he just looks up, how do you make an explosion? And like you see him getting the props for it, and it's like, this ain't gonna turn out well. And like he sets off the explosion, and the police come and they arrest him, and they're like, and the parents are like, oh, we don't know what to do with you, and the therapist is recommending that you go to an asylum. And so he goes to, like, I don't think they're not called asylums anymore, but it's like, you know what they are, like a mental hospital.
An institution.
That's the word I was looking for. Jeez. So he goes to this institution, which is where he meets Andy Samberg, who just makes a quick pop up as like, oh yeah, he's the crazy friend he meets in there. But he goes to this institution, and when he's there, his sister then shows his parents the footage that they had been shooting for this. And you see like the stuff in between the shots where he's just hanging out with the cameraman, hanging out with the other actors, hanging out with his sister, and like they're all just having a good time. Like they're all just love this, and they're actually bonding over doing this. Like they actually are enjoying it. Like that's another thing that I really dug about this film, is that he talks about how, yeah, there's other people out there in the world who loves Brigsby. Brigsby Boy 1, Brigsby Boy 2, Brigsby Girl. I was like, that was just your kidnappers. That was your fake parents pretending to be that to try and keep you in this world. But then after he shows the filmmaker guy, like the tapes, he goes, yeah, I hope you don't mind, but I actually upload these videos onto the internet. They got about 100 views right now, so, you know, not much, but something goes, other people are watching Brigsby now? And it's like, there's a moment where he meets someone in the real world. He's like, you're the Brigsby guy. Oh my God, yes, I know all about that. Oh man, this is great. And like, he's just so happy to meet another person to talk to about Brigsby. So I was like, wow, yeah, this, like I said, everybody's got to bring their own thing to the table on this. And speaking of somebody who grew up in the Deep South where no one gave a crap about like comic books or video games or cartoons or any of the stuff that I'm into, when I got here to New York and I could just meet a random person and have a conversation, or honestly like college, when I got to college, even though I was down in the South, like I met other people at college who was like, wait, you like this show? I love this show. Let's talk about this show. I was like, oh my God, this is a thing that happens. Yeah, it's like, it was kind of that feeling. So I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting. But they show his parents like the footage of like him just having fun. And they're like, you know what? Maybe it is good for him to do this. Like, we're gonna try and understand. So they let him get out of the institution, and then they let him finish the movie. And the movie premieres, and he's too scared to go in there and watch it with anybody. He's just standing out there in the lobby like the whole time. Then he hears everybody applauding. He goes in there, he sees everybody applauding as the movie's over. And like you see them in the audience watching this film, and they're all genuinely excited about this. They all genuinely love this thing. They actually, like, the world has come to love Brigsby Bear. And in all honesty, like, watching like the production value and the stories that are in Brigsby, I was like, dude, I totally understand like the world falling in love with this thing, because if this was a show on Adult Swim, in the real world, people would be like, yeah, hell yeah, Brigsby, I'm getting Brigsby shirts, everything. Like, this is totally like the type of show that would exist these days in our weird, it looks crappy on purpose kind of entertainment world. But he goes in there, and as everyone's applying, he sees the actual Brigsby Bear in the background, and Brigsby waves to him and then just fades away. And it was like, he needed to get this out of his system. Like, I kept looking at this as like, it's Stockholm Syndrome, it's him holding on to this thing. But we mentioned that we've all been in that situation where it's like, we love this geeky thing, but it ends before the ending comes, and we all want to know just how it ends. And yeah, it's a thing that you will be held up on. It's not a thing that for most people will keep you from moving on with your life, but it is, for him, this was his whole world. He needed closure. Yeah, that's so him making this film, it was closure to him. So I was like, all right, it wasn't Stockholm Syndrome, it was closure. It was you working through all your stuff. So, okay, I understand that. But as I said, they don't really kind of delve into that aside from that one shot of Brigsby fading away. Like, that's the one that made me realize what this was. There's nothing else really in here that kind of implies that. But as I said, it's because they're trying to imply many different things and you can take many different lessons from it. So it's like, all right, I can understand it.
I got some questions.
Yeah,
though,
sure.
like...
Go for it.
Yeah, I just want you to like finish.
Yeah, that's the film. There it is. So yeah.
All right, so like Mark.
Q&A time.
All right, so Mark Hamill's character, like, so he works at a studio.
They mention he's like a professor, They mention he's a professor at like a college. I don't mean like he's a scientist or something. He's like a professor at college.
Right.
But they mention, but I don't know if he used to be one or if he still is one. Because they mentioned he got arrested because someone saw him leaving that studio, leaving that warehouse. It's just a big empty warehouse that he's basically rented out, or he's bought this giant warehouse to be like the set of Brigsby Bear. So it's not like he's working at a studio. But like, he created back in like the 80s, he created a stuffed animal, some kind of tiger thing. And it basically is like a tiger version of Teddy Ruxpin. And the world fell in love with it. So I don't think he still has a job. I think basically he quit his job when they kidnapped this kid because now the whole world was looking out for him. And basically he just used the fortune they had from making this stuffed animal to basically like fund their lives from then on out.
And also you mentioned the Brigsby Bear merchandise. Like, where did he get all that from?
It looks really homemade.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, it looks like he's got like a bobblehead, and the bobblehead clearly is made out of clay.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, yeah, he made like, it's one of those, like, I kept waiting for like a moment where like one of his things breaks and you just see like another figure underneath it that was sculpted to look like Brigsby. Like, I kept waiting for a moment like that, but I was like, okay, yeah, no, that never happened. But also, like, this was a guy who was like, he made an entire massive, like, he made sets, he made props, he made costumes, he made an animatronic, like, face wears a mask, and if you put a cassette tape in there, it would move his mouth and raise his eyebrows to go accordingly with it. Like, this guy clearly was like a genius inventor. So like, I didn't quite. So the merchandise looked fake enough that's like, all right, anybody out there could have made this. But also when you see like, oh, this guy made all these sets, I can buy him making a couple action figures too. So I was like, yeah, it's not that weird. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I don't know. It's like you mentioned that he made toys back in the 80s, and it's like I was wondering like if his wife like kidnapped the kid because they like wanted a child to like whip to entertain and like reenact his like re-spark his imagination, his creativity, sort of.
No, the feeling that I got, like I said, they don't really say anything, but the feeling I got from the way that Mark Hamill said it is that it was a situation where they just couldn't have their own kid.
Oh.
That's kind of the way that he sells it. Yeah, like I can't really say the exact line that he says, or like maybe, or even like the exact way he says it, but there was just something about the way that he said, like finding them their own, that made me go, I don't think his wife could actually have kids, and she just kind of snapped and stole a child one day. That's the feeling I got. Is like, yeah, that's kind of the feeling that you get for it. So yeah, again, they don't give you everything, but they give you enough in this film to kind of like understand what's going on. But yeah, so any other questions?
No,
Yeah, okay. Those are good questions. But yeah, if you guys happen to see Brigsby Bear, let me know in the comments down below. Also, I just like started second guessing myself right here at the end. Is it actually called Brigsby Bear, or am I mispronouncing that name?
like, is it Bigsby or Brigsby or?
Oh God, is it Bigsby?
Have
I been saying Bigsby wrong this whole time? We're gonna have to shoot this entire thing over again.
No.
God damn it. This film clearly made an impact on me if I can't pronounce the name correctly. Imagine if I've been saying it wrong this entire time and someone has been screaming in the comments, it's not Brigsby, it's Bigsby, you idiot. I'm sorry, man. I'm terrible with names. You guys know by now I'm terrible with names. I couldn't even remember Bill Pullman or Bill Paxman, which used to be a joke, but at this point it's now kind of offensive if you can't remember which one's which. So yeah, anywho, let me know in the comments down below. We're not shooting this over again if I got the name wrong. Let me know what you thought about the Andy Samberg Bear film in the comments down below. And if you, God damn it. I'm an idiot. Let me know in the comments down below. Follow us on Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Come back next time.
Bye.
Bye. What is it called?